2008, at just 15 years old, Shaker Heights native Ethan Holmes launched his business with his grandfather's applesauce recipe and ambitious dreams of entrepreneurial success. Starting from his family's kitchen and using raw materials gifted during Christmas, Ethan built his brand of all-natural applesauce through sweat equity and persistence. Over the past decade, Ethan has diligently grown his operations and distribution by leveraging his personal network, pitching his product at every opportunity, and listening to the advice of business mentors. His relentless effort has paid off, with Holmes Mouthwatering winning numerous pitch competitions and earning investments from notable organizations such as the Cleveland Foundation, Forbes 30 Under 30, the Chobani Incubator, and the SKU Coca-Cola Accelerator. Today, Holmes Mouthwatering is setting its sights on national and international markets, aiming not only to expand its reach, but also create opportunities for entrepreneurs in the community. On this episode of Small Business Big Conversations, Ethan Holmes of Holmes Mouthwatering. Ethan Holmes, welcome. It's great to see you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I didn't know that we would have like the product right here.
Exactly.
So in the middle of you talking, if you just see an arm reach over and pull this back, and I just excuse it because
exactly.
I saw that.
It.
There's the strawberry peach right there, and
it's so delicious. Yeah, chunks of real fruit.
So let's start with all this right here. Okay. Holmes Mouthwatering applesauce. Right. Where did the idea come from? I touched on it a little bit in the intro, but give me that. It's not the same coming from me. Give me the real story.
So my grandfather actually showed me how to make applesauce, and I said, hey, this is a pretty great product. How about I innovate this, bring it to the market? Had to make my own recipe. So it took me a year in my mom's kitchen right here in Shaker Heights, Ohio, eventually bringing it to the market about 2015. And I was actually a college student at that time.
Awesome. So college student when it came to the market, but you were like
15 years old. 15 years old when the concept all came about, learning how to make applesauce from grandfather and saying, okay, this is a possible product that could be successful. Let me see where this goes.
Yeah.
But it really was just a kid project at that time.
So when you are, starting to develop this, what are your friends saying when you're...
Yeah, I actually remember I had friends that...
Spending weekends making applesauce.
It wasn't always positive. Some said, hey, Ethan, you're kind of a jokester, a class clown. You can't run a business. You're too stupid to, do that. And applesauce is kind of like silly, and they really just didn't see the legs behind it. So that was a lot of my friends' feedback. Then I had friends that are like, you're the applesauce guy. That's who you are. Own that. You know what I mean? So kind of got that reputation.
That's great. So let's talk about the applesauce guy. What... other than the recipe from your grandfather, maybe that was just it, but were there, other decisions that made you focus just on applesauce? I'm sure there were lots of family recipes, right?
Well, yeah, I actually tried to do a chocolate bar at first. That was my first failure, as I tell people, and I saw like an opportunity with Mally's chocolate where they were just kind of blowing up around Northeast Ohio. Yeah. So I said, hey, let me go on YouTube, learn how to make chocolate bars. I melted the chocolate, went to school, Shaker Heights High School as a freshman, and said, hey, here's my chocolate bars, $5. And I called them Nom Nom bars, like Cookie Monster, like Nom Nom Nom, and thought everybody was going to be Nom Nom Nomming. And they're like, Ethan, I'm not giving you my last $5. These taste like dirt, And I remember feeling pretty sad and saying, okay, maybe this isn't in my future. And I saw a jar of Mott's applesauce in my mom's kitchen. And that kind of made me think applesauce. So I actually was the one who went to my grandfather and said, can you show me how to make applesauce? And that's kind of how it all came about, for sure.
So you started humble beginnings, 15 years old. You've grown this business significantly over the past decade.
It's definitely been a lot.
And that's through a lot of different things. A lot of entrepreneurs know what's happened over the last decade. Right. It's managing your business through COVID. There's lots of challenges. There's economic ups and downs and things like that. Talk about some of the challenges that you've faced personally and how you've overcome them.
Definitely. So, 2020, COVID was really a challenging year for us and a lot of business owners, running out of money, having money for inventory. There's times where, we kind of were displaced from our kitchen and then had to figure out how do we put the pieces together. But really it was just kind of about, hitting the pavement, looking at what opportunities were there, applying for multiple accelerators like Chobani Incubator, which we'll talk about, SKU and Coca-Cola. So all those different opportunities. I think some said no and then some said yes. That's how we were kind of able to pivot. and then also taking a step out of the driver's seat and say, let's look at the business instead of just being in the business.
Yeah.
And let's see how we can improve on what we're doing.
Yeah, that's big for everybody or anybody that is running a business. When you're so focused on the product itself, especially when it comes from a family recipe or something like that. What kind of mindset did you have to take on, or what flipped that switch in your head to take a step back and know that you needed to?
I'd say that just we realized there was a lot of limitations for us. Previously, we had applesauce in a glass jar. It was a little bit more pricier, so we weren't able to do school districts, hospitals. Obviously, a glass jar is not very portable. It breaks, when you ship. So we had to say, how can we be able to be in more channels, single serve option, something lighter, while also keeping the same recipe and formulation. So we went through multiple manufacturers to do that, which we'll talk a little bit about, but it really was a grind of how do we keep the same values that we have in Holmes, but also look at how do we be a national brand.
So you got the idea from seeing that applesauce jar on the shelf and knowing that the recipe in the family existed, but just having a product doesn't mean you have an audience for the product and that sort of thing. And you talked about some of the evolutions of going from the jars to the pouches. How do you, as somebody that's continuously focused on growth and expanding into other markets, which you definitely seem to be, how do you go about validating those markets and deciding, if this is going to work or if we think this is going to work, especially maybe with something like a pouch or with a market like a hospital or a school that you haven't been in before? Right. Is there a chicken and egg scenario there? Like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so for me, I actually had some experts, some advisors that said, let's buy some data. And so we bought data from two networks, Nielsen and Spins. So we're really able to look at the category of applesauce as a whole. We saw pouches were the number one package type, but they had the most growth potential. We also saw kind of like uptake in just kids buying applesauce, parents. That was about 80% of the spend is parents buying applesauce for their kids. So we said, how do we make a product that's a little bit more kid-friendly, portable, and pouches seem to be it. We also had to look at our pricing. So again, really just doing a lot of research on the market of applesauce.
Yeah.
Who are the bigger players and what pieces can we take from that? And we could talk a little bit about this, but a lot of entrepreneurs, they just make a product and they do what they want. Right. And that's how I kind of got started. I did what I want. Then that only lasted for so long. And I realized why people weren't buying consistently as much as I like.
This is going to be a very maybe in the weeds question, but how did you know to buy consumer lists and data lists? Is that something that an advisor told you, or was that like?
Yeah, so I actually had an advisor, investor. He said, hey, let's buy some data. Okay. Now, I was lucky because he had some funding that we were able to purchase that for a few $1,000s. And previously that wouldn't have been a priority, but buying that data really kind of led the direction of which, where we wanted to go. We saw that Whole Foods, a lot of those natural organic stores, they actually only made up less than 20% of the sales for applesauce. Okay. Most of the applesauce is sold in Kroger, Walmart. Yeah. So we said, how do we make our product Walmart, Kroger friendly? Okay. How do we get a lot of that food service hospital business? You know what I mean? So again, moving away from being super specialty and local to becoming more national, but also kind of being in the middle where we also still had a premium offering. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't even know if a lot of people know that that's like an option that you can go out and, buy that data, but there's data on all of us about everything that we do.
Data, they're always collected it.
Yeah. Was that about the same time when you were focusing on getting into some of the grocery stores versus maybe a Whole Foods or something like that, when you switched some of the packaging and the branding? Because I've known, about the brand for a long time.
Right.
And I know that there was a distinct switch in the way that it did look to the way that it looks now.
Yeah, it was around that time, again, 2020, kind of hitting the wall and saying, okay, what can we do to kind of get past this ceiling of revenue? A lot of the challenges we were facing from retailers. Hey, we can't put you on the shelf because of this. Your price is $2-3 more. Your ounce size isn't very competitive to what Mott's and Go-Go Squeeze are offering.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So that just kind of allowed us to say, what can we do? Okay, this is what we can do. Instead of just saying we give up or making a whole new product, we said, how can we change what we're already doing?
So it sounds like you are very receptive to feedback from pretty much everywhere, from what the data tells you, from what potential customers tell you, your advisors. You've been a part of some accelerators like Chobani and the SKU Coca-Cola. That's, I mean, being a part of these big corporate accelerators for food products from some of the major players. I mean, that's impressive. How did these opportunities come about? What did you get out of them?
Great question. So again, this was around, I think 2019, 2020, COVID made a lot of things challenging, especially, meeting people in person. So we actually just saw a lot of accelerators online. Mm-hmm. Hey, they're virtual. You don't actually have to be in our state. You don't have to actually fly here. So I was able to apply for Chobani Incubator. Probably my third, fourth year of applying. Okay. And they actually called me and said, hey, you're a Black-owned business that makes applesauce. We never heard of you. We want to put you on our accelerator. Here's $30,000. We're also going to sell you in New York at our flagship store. So again, that was, God in the universe. And then SKU Coca-Cola, that also was kind of me just applying, multiple times, eventually getting that opportunity. So I guess that's my advice, is just for food entrepreneurs or any entrepreneur, just apply, and one thing that I'm going to be sharing publicly in a few weeks with everybody, we were just chosen for the Grow New York competition, and they give up to $3 million in funding. We're top 20 finalists, so I'm actually going to be going to Ithaca, New York, awesome. Pitching in front of hundreds of people with a chance of winning a minimum of $250,000. So they turned me down last year. This year they said, Ethan, you have a good chance of winning something.
So if at first you're not accepted, apply again.
Exactly. You got to keep doing that, but you always got to make your submission different. I had to learn from what did I do poorly last year, what can I do to make this even better.
Yeah. So 30,000 from Chobani,
right.
Potential for a lot more with this new opportunity.
SKU gave us 20,000 as well, the SKU Coca-Cola.
So let's dig into fundraising then. There's a lot of different ways to fundraise a business. From personal experience, I did so lucky that it paid off when I started Brewboat Cleveland, in that I took out a whole bunch of personal loans. Right. And it was like I could be in a whole different situation right now if that was not a successful business. But luckily, knock on whatever, it was great. But you could take investment, you can apply for grant funding. You have some interesting stories about investors on both sides of the coin, on investment you've taken and then investment that you ultimately said no to.
Right.
Let's start with that one.
Okay.
And talk about that a little bit, because that seems like kind of a fun story.
Yeah, definitely a fun story. It was kind of my first time really going out and fundraising. I said, hey, we need to be able to fund the pouches. We need to be able to take this business to the next level. We're also running out of money. It's hard to be able to cover inventory. Mm-hmm. And so I actually found an investor based in Solon, and he was a very wealthy guy. He says, come on out here to my office. He actually gave me a tour, showed me all the bells and whistles, and said, hey, I like what you're doing. I like the work you've done, but I want you to quit Holmes Applesauce. I don't want to fund this. It costs more money than you're going to make eventually, initially. So how about I'll give you a salary to just work for me here. Quit Holmes. You can't do both, and that'll be it. And I remember just shaking his hand saying, well, thank you for your time, and never looking back. You know what I mean? And a lot of people would have said, hey, I'm barely making any money. I can barely pay my bills. I'll just take this salary, Yeah. But I just said, you know what? I'll find somebody else who believes in what I'm doing. So.
And you did.
And I did. I'd say maybe a year later, but, kind of that's part of the journey. And don't let people discourage you. Sometimes I feel like life will put people in front of you to kind of see, is this guy really serious about what he's doing, to kind of test you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the investment that you did end up agreeing to, talk about how that helped develop the business, and also maybe just an add-on to that is, how do you know what's right for you? Obviously, if somebody's like, no, quit your business that you've put all this into, and that's not what you want to do, that's an easy no. But how do you know if it's a right fit?
So I'll even kind of give a quick story on that. Around COVID, again, COVID was a big time for us. I loved COVID because it allowed me, again, to kind of stop being in the business, struggling, putting out fires, and kind of just look around what's out here resource-wise. And I got an email about a foundation called Hirschberg Entrepreneur Institute. And they said, hey, Ethan, we're actually hosting a pitch for food brands. It's virtual. You don't actually have to come to Colorado. And there's going to be about 50 investors, all food related. And I signed up, and I was the only minority owned brand there out of 6 companies virtually. I pitched, and then the guy, Gary Hirschberg, who founded a company called Stonyfield Yogurt, $100 million brand, he raised his hand and said, I will invest in Ethan. Who else is going to follow me? And from there, a guy named Robert Craven raised his hand, and he said, I will actually go on a plane to Cleveland and meet Ethan. just to vet him. You know what I mean? And so he kind of worked with Gary. They did a deal. It was my biggest deal I'd ever received at that time. The most we had ever received in the past was $100,000. Mm-hmm. Robert came down to Cleveland, met me, flew me to Florida. Within a month, 2 months, they gave us $250,000. Then Gary put in another $150,000. So you can kind of see how that amount of money could change the course of the business. Then Robert says, hey, I'm going to work with you. And that's how I knew it was a good fit to answer your question. I'm going to work with you, meet you on your level, and say, I'm going to educate you. We're going to have calls every 2 weeks. We're going to have a retreat. And that's how we were able to come up with the direction behind the brand, buying data, understanding what is our strategy. You know what I mean? And, So
what does that feel like inside? Like when you hear that, from this, this is the class clown,
right?
like dirt tasting chocolate applesauce kid. Like, what does it feel like when your ideas and your product is validated so much that people are raising their hands, to
it felt like an amazing moment, for me. I actually have it on my Instagram, so I'm gonna have to send it to you guys using the video. But it felt like, okay, this is my moment. I finally made it. I felt like I obviously didn't make it. I'm still struggling, today, but it felt like I made it. It felt like somebody who had made millions of dollars, they were successful. They were validating what I was doing. They saw the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, the work never stops, though. You get the investment money. Right. You still have to work on pushing the product out there. You are now moving into some major retailers. So talk about, especially for anybody that is working on a food product or manufacturing any sort of product that might be in big box stores and things like that. What strategies did you employ to go from local Ohio market stuff to in schools and things like that locally to national distribution?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say really picking what retailers. Well, actually take a step back. First, I had to look at what retailers are out there, which ones fit for my product, my category. That's really important. I saw, again, Walmart, Kroger. That's where a lot of the applesauce was being sold through, larger retailers. Yeah. Then figuring out how do we actually get through those barriers to actually get to the buyer. And that's a lot of challenges. It's sales, Right. Again, applying. That's going to be the word for this interview. There's an event called Walmart Open Call. And they just actually finished this past week, but you can apply, anybody from the United States, to have your product sold at Walmart. And I did that around 2021. 2020 was a really big year for us, as you can hear. And the buyer said, hey, Ethan, I like what you're doing. You're local, you have glass jars, so you're not going to fit in Walmart today. But when you have some changes to your product and you're ready, I will put you in 300 stores. And 2-3 years later, I came back to him with the pouches. He said, hey, you don't even have this out yet, but if you send me some samples, I don't even need it finished. I'll give you the green light to put you on Walmart. So that was how that came about. And from there, it's kind of just, again, hustling, to get to that buyer and then, have that relationship and get into those.
What were some of the biggest challenges of getting into, I know that there's always issues with your UPC codes and the nutrition facts and all that stuff. How did you, maybe not I don't need to ask the whole process of going all the way through, but another one of those things where it's this is something we have to do. Where did you start with that to make it all happen?
So I guess going back to the early beginning, it was looking at the market, and that's my advice for a lot of food entrepreneurs. Walk into a grocery store, look at your shelf, see what other products are there. And I remember the first market I ever approached was Miles Market right here in Cleveland, Ohio. And it was a learning moment because they said, Ethan, your applesauce is pretty good. It looks good. We like your story, but you have no nutrition facts and you have no barcode. From there, I went on Google and looked up what those were and then came back to them later. And they said, okay, now you have that. Now we'll give you a chance, So just failing, learning. I think that was kind of the process. And then I had some great advisors, the Cleveland Culinary Launch Kitchen, again, investors that saw an opportunity in me, and then other brands and accelerators. So,
Well, just like an apple grows on the tree, Ethan is growing this company and also helping to grow others in the community as well. We're going to take a little break. We'll be back to talk about that with Ethan Holmes of Holmes Mouthwatering. Stick around.
My name is Valerie Mayen, and my business is the Yellow Cake Shop Clothing Company. We have been operational since 2009, and I really didn't see some real actual growth until I started working with Jumpstart. When I learned how to actually keep track of my expenses and set actual goals, I was able to discover so much more that I was capable of that I didn't realize.
Jumpstart provides capital, services, and connections to help entrepreneurs grow. Get started today at jumpstartinc.org.
We're back with Ethan Holmes of Holmes Mouthwatering Applesauce. Ethan, along with growing your own company, you've mentioned to me and on several occasions of the importance of creating opportunities for other entrepreneurs. So how do you give back to the entrepreneurial community? We'll start there. How do you what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Right, definitely. I say number one, the way I give back is our community program called Holmes Entrepreneur Initiative. And that's really ingrained in our values as a brand. We actually go into schools monthly. I'm actually at a school tomorrow. It was actually a camp. But yeah, we go into these programs. We're teaching students about how to start a business. Mm-hmm. We're feeding the students applesauce. A lot of these schools or programs are in the inner city, food deserts. Yeah. So again, teaching them what is entrepreneurship, finding a problem, coming up with a solution. How do you market yourself? We have a lot of these youngsters that want to create clothing brands and things like that. So we're kind of meeting them where they are and then helping them make that possible. Number two, I'm also a business advisor at the Urban League. My official title is basically like entrepreneur in residence. Mm-hmm. And I'm working with clients 40, 50 a month to help them kind of get started, business planning. Some need to set up an LLC or some are looking at financing. So it's definitely something I'm very passionate about. Yeah. I believe success is only as good as, being able to give it to the next person and help other people become millionaires and successful as well. So
go into a little more detail on an entrepreneur in residence role. A lot of people, that title is sometimes associated with tech startups more than it is with small businesses. So, talk about that role a little bit more, if you would.
Yeah. So the role came about probably going on almost a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. They approached me and said, "Hey, we need somebody who really understands entrepreneurship, boots on the ground, with really a specialty on helping people get into retailers."
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where that came about. Since then, we've been able to run many successful programs. Black Restaurant Program, where we just actually had a graduation for about 20 Black businesses. They all got $10,000, sponsored by Pepsi. And then currently we're running our Black Women in Retail cohort, partnered with Meijer. So we got about 15 ladies last year in Meijer Fairfax, the new Meijer. So something I'm very proud of, again, is just helping the next generation and the current generation be able to grow their business.
So I asked you what some of the biggest challenges that you have faced and overcome. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see with the businesses that you're mentoring or that you're working with?
I'd say a lot of entrepreneurs, they feel discouraged. They feel like, if one thing doesn't work out, then maybe this isn't for me. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of entrepreneurs that, maybe they haven't really turned all the levers. They think that they have, hey, I have a website, I've made this product, but nothing's happening for me. I don't feel like I have a real business. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times I tell them, okay, well, what more can you do without needing $100,000, without needing that $10,000 loan? Sometimes it's just going into a retailer and building a relationship. When I first had the applesauce, I was calling Fox News, Channel 3 News, all of them saying, "My name is Ethan, I'm from Cleveland, and I make the best applesauce. Do a story on me." Yeah. And only one person got back to me, it was Fox, and they said, "Can you come on out?" That kind of gave me some confidence to say, hey, what else can I do? Let me approach Heinen's. Let me approach Giant Eagle,
You're tenacious, man. That's a great lesson for anybody is just, you're not going to get anything without asking for it. You're not going to get anything without applying for it or going after it. And you get after it.
Get after it. It doesn't cost money to get after it. That's it. So that's what I say is the big lesson in my interview for sure.
So what other, obviously the Urban League does some fantastic work in Northeast Ohio. I'm going to throw Jumpstart out there as one that does excellent work, or else I wouldn't get paid.
Definitely.
What other resources and support systems do you think are vital for entrepreneurs, especially in the food industry, which we haven't talked a ton about on this show, so I think that would be...
understanding your numbers, becoming bankable as a brand or a business. You got to be able to have some type of bookkeeping or way that or system in place for how you're managing your transactions and revenue coming in. At first, I was just using spreadsheets, so we all have to start somewhere. Then now I use QuickBooks, that's kind of the better way. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they also need somebody just to talk to. And I think that's a big part of my role as an advisor is just, hey, you got a problem. Even if you know how to figure it out, let's just talk through it. I'm your soundboard. They need somebody who, again, supports them, and they also need opportunities for customers. Everybody's always looking for funding, but a lot of them need actually, a pipeline to go and get new business development. So I think those are some of the main fundamentals. Working also with organizations like Jumpstart has been huge for me in my business, going through the impact program, some funding early on also helped me out quite a bit. So, yeah.
So you're running and growing this company. You are an entrepreneur in residence that's helping all these other companies. You mentioned before we started recording this, got 2 little ones at home. How are you managing all this, like from a personal level?
Right. It's a lot. It feels like I'm running 3, probably 4 different businesses, especially with the school speakings and then the business advising.
Yeah.
But for me, it's something that I'm very passionate about. It doesn't feel like a job. It feels like I'm living out my purpose. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs feel that way, as well. It is stressful for sure. And these are some of the challenges of being an entrepreneur, where you make a little extra profit, but now you got to go pay some shipping bills that, whatever, instead of going on vacation or something. So, and then when you do get a chance to go on vacation, you're still thinking about the business, so it doesn't stop, but again, it's fulfilling for sure.
So what does the future look like for Holmes Mouthwatering Applesauce, your next steps and future goals, and, kind of how do you plan on achieving those?
Definitely. So we really want to become a national brand. One big thing, part of the rebrand, was dropping applesauce from the name. It's now just Holmes Mouthwatering. So we really have like a plan to expand into more products, fruit-wise, home style inspired. We see a lot of opportunity in the fruit snack category as a whole. And then one addition that I haven't really put out publicly is we just came out with a new product called Ethan's Essentials. And I don't have an ego complex or anything like that. It's called Ethan's Essentials because we really wanted something that's still tailored to the story, but was completely different than this brand. It's a lower cost item. We're selling it specifically to hospitals, food banks, and it's a cup of applesauce.
Okay.
It's also being made in the U.S. All this applesauce is being made in Chile and South America. So being able to expand, become a national brand, as you hear, and then also being able to go into more markets, amusement parks, concessions. We want you to see Holmes applesauce at the zoo and then see it also at your local retailer. You know what I mean? So
it has been wonderful hearing about this journey, and I feel like I've known and kind of been around you long enough where I know a lot of the story. I'm glad that we were able to share it. Before we wrap up, you've given some really good nuggets. I'm going to give you another chance of just any other blanket advice for food entrepreneurs, small business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs. What else you got?
I'd say number one, again, just start where you are, and make sure you're just doing it, So if you don't have a business idea and you just say, I want to be able to launch, I want to be able to make something happen, make a social media page, make a website. Get your product down, nail your recipe, whatever it is, or your service, know your pricing, and then go out and find a customer. Because again, I work with so many clients and they don't have a customer, or they haven't figured out who is my ideal customer. Then once you get that customer, how do you optimize to grow that business even further? If you're doing farmers markets and that's successful for you, well then go look at 20 more farmers markets. Then eventually, kind of evolve to grocery stores. So that's really how it was for me. It didn't happen overnight. I wasn't ready for Walmart overnight. It took me 3 years to get in there. But again, I just started, and even when they said no, I still had that in the back of my mind. That's where I'm going, so.
Awesome. Ethan, thanks again. I do have one more part for you. It's our Fast Five, our lightning round of questions. I don't have another pun to go to this break, but we do need to take a break. We'll be back with our Fast Five with Ethan Holmes right after this. Keep it here.
My name is Chanel Walker. I am the CEO of Professional Inspiration, and we empower educators so that they can thrive in their profession and not burn out. Jumpstart has helped me go from just a teacher who had a dream to be an entrepreneur and help educators to a businesswoman, which has just been so impactful.
Jumpstart provides capital, services, and connections to help entrepreneurs grow. Get started today at jumpstartinc.org.
We're back with Ethan Holmes. Ethan, it's the Fast Five, our lightning round. This is how this is going to work. The Fast Five is a misnomer. It's actually 6 questions.
Okay.
But you have to answer 5 of them. If you answer all 6, you win a prize.
Okay.
The prizes are terrible because we have no budget. I was going to give you a plastic spoon, but the applesauce comes in pouches now, so there's no need for even a spoon.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to ship you some fancy cinnamon or something like that to throw on top, okay?
Just this opportunity is the gift, within itself. So.
All right, question number 1. What's your favorite thing about your hometown?
Favorite thing about my hometown. So I'd say my hometown is Shaker Heights, grew up there. I just took my kids recently to Horseshoe Lake. It's a park, in Shaker. So I say that's one of those hidden gems that I really love. Cleveland as a whole, grew up going to Tower City on the RTA, all those different things. So I'd say those feel like home to me.
Awesome. You've got a lot of irons in the fire, whether it's your business or others that you're working on or personal stuff. What's the most exciting project you've worked on recently?
The most exciting project. I'll shout out another Jumpstart business, Adaya Sambo from Cover Me Cutie. She recently just she recently was named a semifinalist for Cleveland Chain Reaction. So working with her, tirelessly to be able to work on her pitch and be able to go in front of these judges, I think that's something that's fulfilling for both of us, just to be able to see that for her. So.
Excellent. What app on your phone do you use the most?
Definitely my mail. Mail, then it's probably tied between TikTok and Instagram, to be honest. Those are kind of my entertainment apps, but mail for sure.
Name a skill you've always wanted to learn.
Skill I always wanted to learn. That's a good question. I'd like to learn, I guess just top of my mind is being able to play chess better. I did kind of go through chess club in like 3rd grade, but if you asked me to play a game of chess to save my life, well, probably going to have to dig my own grave. So let's do
you know the moves that each piece can make?
I know the moves.
Just a strategy
behind
that.
Strategy behind it. Probably do need a little refresher on some of the moves and the pieces, but yeah.
Awesome. Who's your favorite food entrepreneur or celebrity chef to watch?
I would say it'd have to be Gordon Ramsay, and then kind of tied with what's his name? Shouldn't forget this. What's his name? Michael Simon. So sorry, that's kind of disappointing, Clevelander. But Michael Simon and Gordon Ramsay, I'd say, are my top 2, for sure.
All right, I think you're gonna get the cinnamon. So I have to find some really good cinnamon and send you now. Last question: describe your entrepreneurial journey in 3 words.
3 words. Okay. That's a tough one. Hustle. I don't know. I was trying to say I don't want to make it too broad. I don't know. It's a good one.
Maybe you're not going to get the cinnamon. I don't know.
So I see right on the back of my strawberry peach, you got the 3 words. So do you want me to re-say
that?
Yeah,
go for it. Yeah.
3 words that I come up with are seeds of potential.
There you go. I love it.
Perfect.
I love it. That's great. Ethan, this has been awesome. Before we let you off the hot seat, it is time for plugs. Let us know where we can get Holmes Mouthwatering here in Cleveland and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. So you can go to any Walmart within Ohio. We're also in Acme, Heinen's, Dave's, Giant Eagle. And then we're recently named the official applesauce of the best baseball team, possibly in the United States, the Cleveland Guardians. So you can find us at Progressive. We're also on Amazon and just got in the fresh market in a few states. So if you go to the fresh market, so continually expanding. And thank you again for the opportunity.
I love it. We were just I had my kids at the kids club level, the mezzanine level there at Progressive Field, and there it was right there. We got some, so it was there. Ethan Holmes of Holmes Mouthwatering, thank you so much for coming on Small Business Big Conversation. My guest today has been Ethan Holmes of Holmes Mouthwatering. You can visit his website at holmesmouthwatering.com or follow along on Instagram at Holmes Mouthwatering. Thanks to Ethan for joining us today. Thanks to the folks here at VAR Studios for all the work behind the scenes on the production side. Thanks to everyone at Jumpstart for making all this possible. And of course, thanks to you for tuning in. While you're here, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you're notified first of featured clips and new episodes. I'm Freddie Coffey, and we'll see you next month for more Small Business Big Conversations. Take care.